Today, this session is organized by the Minding Center. This is a special study in detail, practical detail of the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths combined. I'll be speaking from my experience here, and you follow up reading from SD 1016, which is a detailed study of the Eightfold Path. Although it is simple, this gives us the background of our actual practice. Now, on with our study now. So make sure you have your notes with you, your lecture summary. If you don't have, they're on the screen, and you can also download them from the Telegram group. Today is lesson 2 of the called the Noble Path and the Four Truths. We're going to see how the Four Noble Truths interact with the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path and Noble Truths, how they interact and how we can practice this. Remember, the simple teachings in Buddhism are what really is important to us. Sometimes we assume, we say, oh, we already know what this is, but we need to know in practice. So we know the Eightfold Path, for example, is called the Middle Way from the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, S56.11, also in the Vinaya Volume 1. It is the very first sutta I translated. In this teaching of the middle way, the Buddha said avoid extremes, right? And here the extremes are the devotion to enjoyment of sensual pleasures, and the other is the devotion to self-mortification. These are two extremes. The sensual pleasure means we're too focused on the body. We are too carried away by the importance of our bodies so much that we forget to let it go, so to speak. We're so worried about it. On the other extreme, we want to really enjoy life, have a good drink and so on and so forth. And our health is getting affected. Now, we are trying to keep good health, but still, we overdo it, for example. So middle way is very important, right? For example, for me, I started my exercise regime quite late in life, around less than a year ago, because I got many nephews. One of my nephews is a pole dancer. He told me it's okay to exercise even though you're 70, because he knows a woman pole dancer who's 70 plus. So that kind of impressed me. And the doctor keep asking me, do you exercise, things like that. So it makes me feel guilty also. So I find this exercising important. But as we age, it's difficult. So what I've done is I've put together some simple yoga practice. I call it senior yoga, sitting and standing. And that helps me a lot. It's about 15, 20 minutes of yoga. When I'm ready, I'm going to get right now to videotape this, and anyone can do this. Any senior can do this. So the important thing is we take care of our body. The middle way is to take care of your body. As we age, we only have this one body, and this is our vehicle of awakening. The middle way is to keep it healthy, right? So every time I do this yoga, the timing, I will say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. So I use that as the timing for each step, more or less. So I don't know how many hundreds of Namo Tassa I say during that senior yoga I've been doing every day. I try to do it every day. So that is keeping your body in good balance, good health. Remember, Dhammapada 204, I think, health is the highest gain. Health is the best profit. Whatever profit you have, if you don't have health, you're going to use all that money to pay the doctors and so on, and you won't have the time to spend it anyway. So this is the middle way, keeping yourself healthy. The simple advice the Buddha gives. By the way, the Buddha also exercises, twice a day. Early in the morning, before dawn, he would do his walking up and down before he goes for his arms round. Even the arms round, is also walking exercise. And then in the evening, during dusk, he also would do walking meditation, either sit or walking. After sitting, you do the walking, or walking and sitting. There is a real story about one young monk. He went with this old monk, and he was really amazed at this old monk, about 80 years old, still very healthy and strong. He doesn't know how this monk can be so healthy and strong at that age and so lively. In the morning, he found out the secret. This monk woke up early in the morning. He tells the young monk to get ready, follow him. And they went for a long walk, Pindapata walk, to collect alms. That was the secret of his health. Every day he walked this a few kilometers. So that is how he became strong and healthy. Okay. Then on the other hand, we may feel like, oh, we are young, we want to enjoy life and so on, and then we forget the health rules, resting, things like that. And that's the other extreme, which can be risky, dangerous, right? Now we see the Bodhisattva, the young prince, going through all this. Remember in the palace, the three mansions that the young Siddhartha had. He was enjoying his life through the three seasons. The palace was built by his father, so you can see something like the picture of that palace on the right hand side. And the funny thing is, because his father gave him all this enjoyment, in the end, he felt, oh, is that all there is to it? Is that all there is, this fun with the body? So he began to kind of like take it for granted and found no more real pleasure in it. In psychology, we call this flooding. Okay? So in a way, that is what prepared him to renounce the world, because he has gone through all these, he knows what pleasure is, and he's willing and able to give it up. So nowadays, sometimes you hear all these scandals about monks having problems in the US in the 90s, 1990s was a really big scandal with Zen masters and tulkus, Tibetan tulkus. Very bad case there. We even have documented this. There were lots of documentation about this because a lot of people suffered. A lot of women, a lot of men suffered. Why is it they break all these serious rules, although they claim to be great teachers? That's because they really have not enjoyed life. They've not gone through this aspect of life that the Bodhisattva has gone through. He has gone through all this, so he knows what this is. This is a time in the Bodhisattva's life when I think, books like that erotic classic called Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra. It's not a Buddhist book, by the way. It's one of those worldly books. It was around this time that this book was written, I think. So you can imagine all these pleasurable lives of the rich and powerful is happening at that time. And the Buddha went through all this. This is one way of thinking, that you have a body and you're meant to enjoy life. So the young prince Siddhartha or this young Bodhisattva tried that. It didn't work for him, and then later he left home, as you all know. Maybe he renounced the world, and he even cut down on food, and you can see how it looks like. That's the other image of him on the top, the emaciated Buddha. There are very few such images. This kind of images are hardly half a dozen of them to show that the Buddha is so thin. The most characteristic of this image is you can see the stomach. He says that when I touch my stomach, I can feel the backbone. So that's how thin and how emaciated he is, how little food he took. So this is the other extreme of torturing his body, and that didn't help. He almost died. He almost collapsed one day. So he realized he must go. He must take the middle way. That he has to take care of himself. He has to eat properly, stay healthy, and so that the body will be of service to us. When we meditate, we can sit comfortably, and then we can let go of this body. Before you can let go of the body, you must take good care of it, so that you have something worthwhile to let go of in that sense. Okay? All right, now the next diagram. So when we talk about this middle way, we are talking about the body, right? The body must be respected. So understandably, when you look at the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, the training, it is also called the three trainings. The Eightfold Path comprises the three trainings. And the first training is that of factors or limbs 3, 4, 5. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. Okay. So in other words, this deals with the body. Okay. We have to discipline the body first, respect the body first. So this is what respect means, to accept something as it is. That's the actual meaning. So if you respect the old, that means you accept the fact that they are old and you give them that kindness, that space. We also respect young people because they're young and that's the way they think. They are different, they're frivolous sometimes. So we respect that. So here we respect the body. What is the body? The body is speech. So we must respect speech in the sense that, it should be wholesome and not be disturbing to others, and it should be helpful and so on. All right. And of course, the body itself, our actions, which are the first three precepts. Okay. Of course, in the precept, speech is only one, fourth precept, but actually there are four aspects of it, as we know, right speech. Now then, you also have right livelihood. Okay. Okay, this is not something easy because sometimes we can't really choose the jobs that we want. So we try our best to keep to the precepts when we have a job, so that we don't create bad karma for ourselves. So this is the middle of the middle way. It is a moral virtue. And then the purpose of this, keeping our body healthy, disciplining it, keeping the precepts, is to prepare the body for meditation so that we can focus better, right? So the precepts not only help us to create good karma, the precepts also prepares us for a calm mind. So those people who have difficulty meditating, if you find strangely for some reason you try very hard but you can't meditate, then perhaps you should check your moral virtue, the precepts. Are you keeping all the precepts properly? Right. So if not, then adjust your life in such a way that you are able to keep the precepts properly. What you've done in the past, mistakes you've done in the past, don't worry about them. It's gone. Okay. Start now, change now. Okay. So the precepts are important in that sense. They prevent us from worrying, from feeling guilty, from the impact of past bad karma. Because when you sit very still, very quietly, and then these memories come back, oh, I did this, I did that, then you feel very bad and guilty about this, about past karma. That is why knowing the Dharma is very important. Even the worst criminals can be helped. Angulimala was helped by the Buddha. There was another executioner who was helped by Sariputta. This man was a really nasty robber as a young man, and he was a killer so bad that even the robbers also were scared of him. This man whom Sariputta helped. So in the end, he decided to join a band of thieves. But even then, the thieves were scared of him. They tried not to get him in. But the leader was kind and somehow thought that he might be a good addition. So against the advice of his members, he took in this nasty man. And in the long run, to cut a long story short, when these robbers were all caught by the king, then the king said, okay, who will, there are so many of them, so the king said, who will execute all these robbers? Then, the king will grant mercy to this. Nobody want to do that, But this man, who is the murderer, said he will do it. So he turned on his own robber brothers, if you like. So you can imagine this kind of person. Now, so he became the state executioner, so to speak, the king's executioner, all his life until he grew old. He was too old to carry the axe and chop the head properly, so he had to stop. Yes. Now, what has an executioner, a retired executioner, what can he do? He got no more job, he's jobless. They felt very sad, very unhappy. And here comes Sariputta, who met him, and he spoke to Sariputta. Sariputta was very compassionate. He says, yes, you've done wrong things, but you got to stop thinking about those things. You just think right now, focus right now. Okay. So with that practice, he just focused on the now. He's able to prevent the bad karma from coming to him. Because of his present good mind, he's able to attain happy states. Of course, the question is how long and so on is another matter. But the important thing here is there is a chance, even for the worst person, through meditation, proper guidance, to be helped. Okay? It doesn't mean that doing bad is all right. You need an arahat in this case to help. Sariputta was able to help with his guidance. So the point is, meditation with the right people can help people who have great difficulties too. So that is meditation training. That is 6, 7, 8. Right effort. Right? You got to make sure your meditation is correct, right? Like that you do not, number one, do not do something bad which you have not done before. Let's say you have never drunk before, you never smoked before. No need to do it. Okay, the good action of non-action. Number two, right effort. If you have done something bad, stop doing it. Okay, so these first two are the negative good acts. Third, right effort is to something good you have not done before. Let's say you've never meditated before. You start now. Okay, so that's your third right effort. And the fourth right effort, cultivate it, keep it going. Keep it going in what way? Number 7, mindfulness. Keep your mindfulness before you. Because the Pali word is parimukha, before you. Okay, that means be alert. And if you look at the Satipatthana Sutta, right mindfulness, there are different levels. Okay, but the main one for us is body-based meditation. For example, we watch the breath. So that's right mindfulness, watching the breath. Okay. When you watch the breath properly, and then you let it go, you let go of the body. How does the breath help us to let go of the body? Now, the breath is amazing because of this interesting possibility. When you start watching the breath, it's the body, it's a physical body. All right, in, out, when you count the breath, that's the physical body, the breath that is physical body. Now, as you watch this breath over time, especially in the third or fourth stage of your breath meditation, the space, the breath is very peaceful, you don't notice in out anymore. You can say that is the breath has become the mind. So the breath can switch from body to mind, from physical to mental, right? So that's when the breath switches from physical to mental, then you attain focus. Now that's number 8, right concentration. Of course, traditionally, right concentration, right sama samadhi refers to the attaining of jhana. That is very deep. Where you go deeper, the mind is totally free from the body. That's jhana. Okay, so that much we can talk about by way of summary. So all these 3, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, constitute mental training, meditation training. Okay. Now all these must be rooted in 1 and 2. That is why right view is number 1. Because right view, for example, reflecting on the nature of impermanence, dukkha, non-self, it runs through all the other factors. Right view underlies all the other 7 of the path factors. And right thought is how we deal with our mind, our intention, the mind in action. So these are the 2 that constitute the first 2 limbs or first 2 factors of the Eightfold Path. So there you are, in brief, how you see the Eightfold Path work to help us go into our practice of meditation. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Now, so early on, the Buddha told us in the suttas, the Buddha told us how he overcome the extremes, how he found the middle way, and one way he put it was in this way, by saying that he neither halted nor struggled. And this is found in the Samyutta, the very first teaching in the Samyutta Nikaya, notice S1.1. When I halted, avuso, I sank. But when I struggled, I was swept away. Then avuso, by neither halting nor by struggling, I crossed the flood. So here, halting, struggling. So these are two extremes, the words used, okay? So the commentary explained to us what is meant by this. So by halting, you see on the right side there, by halting one sinks. What does that mean? One sinks because of defilements, all those negative ideas we have hold us down, prevent us from growing. Number two is craving and views. We want this, we want that. That holds us back from, growing. And then when we have got rid of views, still craving is still the number three. Craving. Sometimes we think of progress. Instead of meditating, we say, "Oh, I want this, I want that," or you have the idea, "I must sit longer." So you think of the sitting longer instead of actually doing it. So in meditation, we don't think about all these things. We just do it, basically. We enjoy it, and we let it happen. Number four is very famous, right? We think because of the eternalist view. Eternalist view here is belief in some kind of eternal life, right? These are the God believers. They think that, oh, this life may not be very long, but then they're not afraid to die because they say, oh, when we die, we go to heaven, which is eternal life. This is called the eternalist view, which is a wrong view. This only brings us suffering, right? One result is people do not value this life. They think that the future life is the better one because it's eternal. Number five, people think by way of fixating on existence view, being caught in non-existence view, unable to rise beyond it or beyond either one. No? Here, existence, non-existence view. Existence means they want to be reborn in this state, that state, and be reborn in a form state, formless state. They think that by being reborn in a higher state to be happy, right? But all these states are impermanent. And when our karma in those higher states are exhausted, we fall down. We fall into the suffering states. Now, you all have heard of the snake and ladders game, right? The snake and ladders game is a very famous Buddhist game. It's an Indian game. It was invented in India during the Buddha's time, even before the Buddha's time, to remind us this is samsara. This is karma, right? Because our good karma is like a ladder. Okay, we climb up and we go to this heaven. Wow, it's really wonderful. You go up there, and suddenly you get the wrong throw. You go to the snake's head. Okay, that's bad karma, and then zoom, you go back down to square one. So that is samsara. You go back and forth, back and forth. Okay, that's existence. So some people argue, okay, in that case, I don't want to exist. I kill myself, so that's the end. No more suffering. Again, this is not true because our consciousness moves on, a new life. So people who kill themselves are not happy, so you can have unhappy rebirth. So, and that's going to, continue. The suffering is going to, that doesn't help. So the Buddha is telling us, face our life bravely, properly, wisely, meditate, cultivate. That's how you free yourself from suffering. Okay, so this commentator goes on by talking about what's meant by swept away. It says by way of other defilements and volitional formation. So basically, it's very similar to the other side where it comes to defilement. However, your views is also very similar. The next one is different, by way of annihilationism. Now, the thing is this annihilationism is very similar to non-existence, right? It means this is a materialist view. Most materialists believe this is my only life, and my life and my soul are the same, and my body and my soul are the same. Body and soul are the same thing. So when body dies, the self, the soul also dies. So that's the end. There's nothing to worry about. Okay, so this is annihilationism. But in Buddhism, we reject this idea. And then the restlessness, we are led by restlessness. That causes us to be swept away. Now, this one is a special, one of the higher fetters, which we will talk about in due course. We feel very uneasy, we're troubled by different things in life, and that carries us here, carries us there. Okay? And of course, there is self-mortification that carries us away, which I've talked about already. And the last one is, it's interestingly, wholesome mundane formations. Now you notice on the other side, on the left-hand side, it is unwholesome formations. But on this side, it is wholesome mundane formations. So here is where we do good. We do good, but this good can also trouble us. For example, we may, for example, build temples or do charitable work, and then we say, oh, are people recognizing this? Are we getting titles? Things like that. So we get caught up in this kind of idea, right? So then we don't really know the spirit of actually doing good here. For that reason, the Arahat is said to be one who is free from both good and evil. But in the case of the Arahat, he's free from both good and bad. So this just to give us an idea, the commentator is trying to give us an idea of differences between the two extremes. Okay, let's go on. Next slide. Okay, now this one is a quote from the sutta, all right? The Buddha talked about the middle way, and part of the middle way is the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are the wisdom of the wise ones, the noble ones, who are the stream winners, ones eternal, non-eternal, and the Arhat. So the Buddha also reminds us that this middle way, this path that the Buddha has discovered, is there. Now, when you talk about a path, you either open up the path, or the path is already there, and then you rediscover the path. Either way, you can say there is this path through the jungle called samsara. So, in other words, the Buddha did not invent this idea. He's saying, well, I discovered this, and I'm telling you, Buddhas in the past also discovered this. You only need one Buddha in each universe, and he will declare this path for us to follow. So this path leads to an ancient city, to a lost city. So here's like some Indiana Jones story, there's the city in the jungle which is lost, and then the Buddha rediscovers it. So this is the parable of the ancient city in the Samyutta Nikaya 12.65. Section 19, the Buddha says, it is just as if bhikshus are the monks, a man while wandering in the forest on a mountainside arrives at an ancient road, an ancient highway, a straight or direct way, followed by people in the past. So this road was lost, so this person discovers the road. Who is this person? Of course, it's the Buddha, or it can be any of us who is a meditator. You discover this path. He arrives there. So he follows the road and he reaches this ancient city. Having arrived there, he sees an ancient city, an ancient royal city inhabited by people, endowed with paths, endowed with forests, endowed with lotus ponds, and surrounded with ramparts, delightful. Now remember, this is a very ancient city, so you have all these walls and parks and forests, and there are some people there. Now, these people, they're very special people. They are not normal people like us. They are the saints. Okay? So this city refers to, in a sense, something like Nirvana or the path to Nirvana. So these are the 4 kinds of saints in this ancient city. Section 20. Then bhikshus, the man informs the Raja or royal minister, please, sir, you should know of this. While I was wandering in the forest on the mountainside, I saw an ancient road, an ancient highway, or a straight direct way, followed by people in the past. I followed it, and following it, I saw an ancient city, an ancient royal city inhabited by people, endowed with parks, endowed with forests, endowed with lotus ponds, surrounded with ramparts. Delightful. Would you, sir, please renovate that city? All right. Now, we can interpret this short little saying in different ways. No? For example, we can say, now, who is speaking? Who is this person? Of course, we can say our first thought is the Buddha, right? The Buddha discovers this ancient city, and then he tells us to practice. Okay? Or another way is we can say, someone knows this practice and is able to taste this freedom of nirvana, and he comes teaches us. Or we can say this is Brahma Sampati even, who comes down and invites the Buddha to teach and say, declare this ancient city to others. So these are the different ways of putting it. But the main idea here is that there is this ancient city. This is nirvana. We can go there by following this Eightfold Path. You make the effort. So this is a bit more elaborate idea of the path, which I mentioned in the first lesson, if you remember. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next diagram now. Okay, so here we have something slightly different. Okay. This is called the way out. So when we talk about path, the path also is the way out of the city, the crowded city. So we all work in the city, lots of people there, we've got housing, but occasionally we just love to go into the country, just to go away, go to the park, you know. We like the open air, fresh air. So the Buddha discovers this way out, gives us this way out. So this is the parable used in the Sambadokasa Sutta, A6.26. Sambada means crowded, narrow. Okasa here means opportunity, chance, opening, an opening in the crowd, an opening in something very narrow and tight. So here, this monk says in this sutta, it is wonderful, Avuso, it is marvelous, Avuso. Avuso is how a monk addresses another monk. How the attaining of an opening or the open, okasa, in the confined, the crowded, sambada, has been discovered by the Blessed One, who knows, who sees, the Arahant, the fully self-awakened one, for the purification of beings, for overcoming sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of physical and mental pain, for gaining the right way, for realizing nirvana. Okay, so in other words, here we have another imagery of the path. The path here is an opening leading out of the narrowness, the crowdedness of the city, which is samsara. So you have the big city, samsara, you have the ancient city, nirvana. And there is this path leading away from the crowded city to this spacious, beautiful ancient city. The city may be ancient, but it's like a garden, beautiful garden. So that's nirvana. So this is called the opening in the crowd. So another idea here is we get out of the crowd. We don't want to be caught up in the crowd because the crowd has expectation. When you're with the crowd, you have to behave like the crowd, and the crowd does not really think. And so you just follow the crowd, and sometimes you don't even know what's going on, and people can get hurt. If the crowd runs amok, people get hurt, get stampeded, and so on. So we have to be very careful in the crowd. So that is the samsaric crowd. We get out of it through following the path. Now, if you look at the early Buddhist idea of the 31 planes, you see this figure at play also. Now, if you look at the 31 planes, the lowest are the suffering states, the hells, right? And the hells are the most crowded, very crowded. I don't know whether you've heard of the Black Hole of Calcutta, which was a terrible dungeon where some British people were in prison, and many of them died in there, very tightly put together, held up together in a very tight spot. So hell is like that, really crowded, very, very crowded place. And we can also think of the animals. You notice the animals in the Serengeti, for example, huge, big crowds of wildebeest, and they get attacked by the lions and so on. So this is the most crowded area are the lower suffering states. And you find that if you live in a very crowded area, it's very difficult to really live peacefully also. Then as you go up, then you come to the human state. Human state is kind of like in between. You can also find some space. If you can create a space, you can find some spacious place to live in. But when you reach the heavens, wow, the heavens are, in a sense, underpopulated, if you like. Very spacious. You have this huge heaven, and there are different dimensions. So they do not crowd into each other. For example, the non-returners, we don't say they have a special heaven for themselves, but they live in a certain dimension which is uninhabited by any other beings. Only the non-returners exist in that dimension. It's like radio waves, it's like your phone waves, there's only one particular wave, right? So it's very spacious. So the higher levels are more spacious, the heavens. Now you can imagine nirvana is beyond space and time. So you can even talk about that. So this is the analogy of space crowdedness. So you can see how beautiful it is. Okay. All right, now we are in slide 5. Health is the highest gain. This is from Dhammapada 204. So we see here, earlier on I mentioned something about health. We have to respect the body and respect the mind, because these are vehicles of awakening, right? So the Buddha has declared in Dhammapada 204, health is the highest gain and nirvana is the highest peace. So here is where we come to the Four Noble Truths. So the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths fit in very nicely. How is that? Now, if you look at the Four Truths, number 1, suffering. Number 2, arising of suffering. Okay, there's a difference here. Number 4 is path, and you can see 3 in place of 4 is ending. Okay, so there's a slight difference in arrangement. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, suffering, arising, ending, path. But here it is arranged 1, 2, 4, 3. I will explain this in a while. Okay. Now, first is, how does the Eightfold Path fit in? First of all, the Buddha discovers there is suffering in the world. People are never happy. And then through his meditation, he finds out why. All this suffering arises through ignorance, through craving. Ignorance and craving go together. Ignorance is blind. Craving is lame. This is the analogy used. Okay? So, ignorance wants to do a lot of things, but it doesn't know what to do. Whereas craving is able to move, but is not sure what to do also. So it is said that craving sits on the shoulders, ignorance sits on the shoulder of craving and tells craving where to go. Okay, so you find this really interesting companionship, partnership. Okay, craving and ignorance going together, two sides of the same coin. And then you have the ending of suffering and then the path. So this is what's called the teaching model. The teaching model, okay. Then in the Mahasalayatanika Sutta, M149, you have this rare arrangement where suffering is mentioned first, and then the arising of suffering, and then number 3 is the path. Now you notice the logical sequence here in terms of practice. You notice there is suffering, then you reflect on how it arises through ignorance, through craving. Then you want to get out of it. There is the path, the Eightfold Path. So you follow this path, then you reach the ending of suffering. So this is called the practice model. This model is rare, but it is found there in the, for example, Mahasalayatanika Sutta. Right? So you have 2 models. There is the truth sequence of 1, 2, 4, 3. This is called the practice model, and there is the more familiar teaching model 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Now, when we look at this Four Noble Truths, there's another interesting point which we should note. That is 1 and 2. That is where suffering is concerned, and arising of suffering refers to the meaning of life. Okay, in other words, if we look around everywhere, whether in this world or outside this world, in some far distant galaxy, the truth is the same. There is suffering, there is ignorance, there is craving, and the suffering arises from there. So this is the meaning of life. It's the same everywhere. Then, because we understand the meaning of life, when we can work on the purpose of it. The purpose is to get out of this suffering. And that's the path. And you follow the path, it leads to the ending of suffering. So this is the purpose of the Buddhist practice, Buddhist life, if you like. Now, what's interesting in these 2 words, in English we say meaning and purpose, right? But in Pali, it's the one same word. The word is atta, okay, A-T-T-H-A, okay? Atta can mean meaning. It can also mean purpose. Atta can also mean benefits, goodness, okay? In Sanskrit, it is artha, A-R-T-H-A. Then in Malay, it becomes arti. Right? In Malay, we all know arti means meaning, okay? So that's how the Sanskrit got adopted in Malay language. All right, so you have the Four Noble Truths give us the meaning and purpose of life. Okay, there you are. You can see at the bottom, meaning of life is the first and second truth. Purpose of life, third and fourth truths. Okay, let's go on. So with that understanding, we have the Buddha again in the Samyutta Nikaya declaring to Anuruddha, only suffering and ending of suffering. That's my teaching. As before, so now, says the Buddha. Only one thing do I teach. Only suffering and the ending of suffering. In fact, when you look at this short sentence, it covers the Four Noble Truths. Only suffering refers to the truth 1 and 2. Ending of suffering refers to truth number 3 and 4. Right? It's all there, but the Buddha says it more concisely this time. Right? So you have the Pali word there. Right? Before Anuradha and now too, I declare only suffering and the ending of suffering. Pubbe chahang anuradha etarahicha dukkhan cheva panyapemi dukkhasacha nirodhanti. Right? So the Buddha says this is what we need to know if you become a Buddhist. Because anything else would not be very helpful. There are some people who are very intellectual, they want to know so many interesting things, especially the nature of existence. For example, what happens when a being dies? Here the being is called the Tathagata. So you see, in Greek philosophy, Aristotle's idea, you have these dualities. Either something exists or doesn't exist. This binomial idea. And from there you get modern mathematics and so on. But in Indian philosophy and logic, there are 4 possible states of truth. That something exists, something does not exist, or both exist and exist, or neither exists nor not exists. So here the Buddha says, don't think too much about this. This happens, this is very popular in ancient India. So people ask, for example, when someone dies, does he exist after death? Does it not exist? Or perhaps both, or perhaps neither? In the case with the Buddha, you can't answer anything anyway. So the Buddha said, don't worry too much about this. It's not going to be very helpful. There are many answers and there are no answers. It really depends on your opinion. So just focus on my teaching, the Buddha says. I declare only suffering and the ending of suffering. And you see this teaching elaborated in the Chulamalunkhya Putta Sutta, which we'll be studying in the global series of suttas. Okay, so this is another reminder to us. Okay, number 7. All right, here you have 2 parts, 7a, with the 3 trainings again. Okay, about life and liberation. Now, this arrangements of the 3 kinds of training is found in the Chula Vedala Sutta. Because sometimes someone might ask you, where in the Sutta do you find this arrangement, right? So it is in the Chula Vedala Sutta, M44. So these are the 3 groups, or known as the 3 trainings. The first training is in moral virtue. So when you talk about training, the first is moral virtue. So that's at the bottom of the pyramid, which you will look at in a moment. And moral virtue trains our body, meaning body, speech, and our livelihood, if you remember. That's factors 3 to 5. Then factors 6 to 8 are mental concentration. That is meditation, right? And then factor 1 and 2 constitute wisdom, that is the spirit of Buddhism, and that also leads to liberation. So this is a very quick summary. The details are coming. Okay, let's look at the next diagram. Okay, next diagram, yeah. Okay, now before we go into the pyramid diagram, let's look at why or how we can apply this 3 levels of training again. In a sense, you can ask, why do we have 3 trainings? What are they used for? Okay. How do we apply them in our daily life? Stages in the destruction of defilements. Okay. Now, if we look at our daily lives, right, the most difficult practice for us is actually keeping the precepts. Right. So here there is what's called higher morality. So this is where morality is practiced with mindfulness, especially for monastics, for renunciant. So on a simple level, even for us as lay people, we begin by practicing moral virtue, keeping the precepts, for the abandoning of transgression. You notice second column, the last, we start at the bottom, the last word there is transgression, vitikama, vitikama. Here meaning breaking the precepts. We should avoid that. Because when we break the precepts, then we violate basic things which are of value to us. For example, the first precept, highlights the value of life, for example, right? So we should not transgress that, okay? So this is what moral conduct does. So the defilement is misconduct. So if we break the precept, there's a misconduct. So here, how do we abandon this misconduct? It is done by substitution, tadanga, substitution. We replace something bad with something good. How do we do this? One way is loving kindness is the most common. Now, if you practice loving kindness regularly, you find it's easier to keep the precepts. Because when you think of loving kindness, you are very unlikely to break the precepts, right? If you, in your mind, you keep saying, may people be well and happy, may this person be well and happy, you're not going to hurt that person. You won't be thinking of breaking the precept. So this is the meaning of substitution. When you get angry with someone, you think of the good things he has done. Then you overcome the negative idea inside you, especially people who are close to you. Okay, you substitute the negative idea with something positive. Okay, so this is the simplest way of overcoming negative these defilements or negative emotions, if you like. It's not totally effective in the sense it doesn't uproot everything, but it's a beginning. We start from there. It is a kind of something you do on the spot, okay, and it helps in that sense. More than that, you have to cultivate your mind. You need to build up the higher mind. The higher mind here means you must learn to focus, not just meditate, but also learn to focus. And this helps you or helps us to overcome obsessions, pariyutthana, things we keep on wanting to do. For example, we love collecting certain things, or we love attention. We want to be right. Sometimes you have friends who will give you long explanations about something. They seem to know a lot, and they want you to know that they know a lot, and so on. So there is this craving they have for attention, and so on. It can be in other negative ways too. So, for example, people who like to kill, destroy things, to steal, to lie, and so on, breaking the precepts. So this you need suppression, right? Vikambana. Okay. Now this is done with meditation. So in order to say cut down the urge to steal, the urge to kill, you need this practice of mindfulness to strengthen your mind. How? By removing that fruiting of past karma, which motivates us, which moves us to break that precept, right? So this mindfulness suppresses that obsessive habit we have. That is a hint here, if people with obsessive compulsive disorder probably can practice this sort of to push down this kind of habit. Of course, this is not simple. You need guidance from someone who knows the training well, who knows psychology well, as well as meditation. That helps. Now, the first one, the very top one, which is actually the third one, is the most tricky, the most difficult. How do we uproot these defilements? I notice the last column, abandoning pahana. The last column, the first one is called uprooting, samucheda. Okay. And what do we uproot? Next column, we uproot views. It is our views that make us have craving and make us misconduct ourselves. And they need to be uprooted. And it's not easy to uproot this. It takes time. If you practice Buddhism regularly, yes, it's very likely there are certain things you will never do. You're strong enough not to break that kind of precept. And these are very powerful negative emotions because they are latent tendencies. Look at the second column, latent tendencies, anusaya. They have been there inside you since day one, since you were born. In fact, they were there even from past lives. Many lives before, we were building up this past karma and all this there. This is the unconscious. I'll be talking about the latent tendency and the unconscious in the other course about the 5 aggregates. Okay, so look up the advertisement for this. So this latent tendency can only be overcome through higher wisdom. You understand the nature of non-self, the nature of selflessness, suffering and impermanence put together. Then we overcome views, especially beginning with self-views. And then from there we work out, after attaining arahathood, all the latent tendencies are uprooted. It is the latent tendencies that keep feeding our rebirth, born again, suffering. So this is a summary of how we overcome the defilements. Okay, all this you can look up in your book SD 1016. Okay, so look at table 165. You have more details there. Okay, let's go on. This is the last of the diagrams. It's a summary of everything actually. The Buddha's teaching is said to be good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, right? So the beginning here, of course, is moral virtue. We cultivate moral virtue. The Eightfold Path is about noble virtue. So it's good in the beginning. Good in the middle, it is mental training, samadhi sikha, mental cultivation, it is good. And it's good in the end because it brings wisdom, right? So there you are. And this statement is found in the Chula Hati Padopama Sutta, M27, and also in the Maha Tanha Sankhya Sutta, M38. So here you have 2 paths. One is the mundane path, the worldly way, and this is where people are called outsiders because they don't follow Buddhism. In fact, as long as we are not yet stream winners, technically we are still outsiders because we have not reached the path. So that is why we need to aspire to reach stream winning, at least stream winning in this life itself, so that we reach the path and then we move onwards, right? And to do that, we have to practice the Eightfold Path listed there, right view, right intention, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right speech, right bodily action, right livelihood. So these are arranged in the pyramid form. You notice the bottom of the pyramid, there is training in moral virtue, sila sikha, is the foundation of our Buddhist life. Right speech, right bodily action, right livelihood. In simple terms, these are the 5 precepts. And this is the basis for our meditation, which is the second level of the pyramid, training in concentration. You have right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And both of these, you need both. They're always there, okay? We don't remove any of the levels. So training in moral virtue, training in concentration leads to wisdom, training in wisdom, panya sikha, which is right view, right intention. Now on the right side, is something we'll be talking about next week, next lesson, in future lessons. It's a supramundane path. This is, you're already on the path, a noble path. You are at least a stream winner or upwards. In other words, you have broken at least the first 3 fetters. Now, what are these fetters? We find out in the next lesson. If you want to read ahead, the number is there, section 1.2, 1.2, and 1.4 to 1.4. Then actually it's better to start from the bottom, right? So the stream winner is one who has these moral virtues, beloved of the noble ones, the saints, the arahats. They really praise us for keeping that kind of moral virtue of the stream winner. Then we have to build up our meditation. Ideally, dhyana, if you want to become a non-returner and arahats, if not at least mindfulness, right? Being mindful helps us to be stream winners. And then we break the 3 fetters. So in the next lesson, we'll find out more what the 3 fetters are. In fact, next lesson, we'll talk about the 10 fetters that will explain how all the 4 saints come into being and why there are 10 and so on. Okay, so I think that's the last of the diagrams. Okay, right? Okay, so we will end here for the moment so that we go on to question time.
I would like to start, but I do not know enough to ask meaningful question.
Well, then you're the right person. Go ahead.
It seems very interesting. That what I gathered, and the foundation based on what the last slide says. That is the one that I need to concentrate on, especially for the beginners like myself. Otherwise, it would not serve a strong foundation for me to build anything upwards.
So yes. So what is your question?
It's just a comment.
Comment. Okay. Well, that's a good comment actually. So what we can do is begin by making sure you're trying your best to keep the 5 precepts, and that will help you with your meditation. So these two go together. You can try. That's what a lot of people try to do nowadays, especially in modern psychology. They try to meditate, but without the precepts. And you find it doesn't really work that way. You may see some kind of technical progress, but it's not real change. So you need this moral basis to it. They help each other. Okay, the body is calm and straight, and the mind becomes peaceful. So it goes back and forth like that. That's how you a healthy mind in a healthy body. Mens sana in corpore sano, as we say in Latin. Yeah? So this is the balance. Middle way also means balance. All right. So moral virtue and meditation help each other. They balance each other up also. So in that way, they raise us up towards wisdom.
I can see the need for us to introduce this teaching maybe to much younger people. Amongst the very base is the livelihood. And if you are already committed half your life to a career which render your foundation difficult, it's very frustrating. So it brings us back to the comment earlier about us having to form something more concrete. And that is definitely a good way to go towards helping with the livelihood. Guidance, a proper pointing of the path that one can lead to, thereby making cultivation much earlier.
Very true, yes. There is something else I'll be dealing with in one of the suttas in the Global Sutta Study on spiritual friendship. Okay, since you mentioned young people, for that matter, anyone who's doing meditation, the spiritual friendship with a teacher, with a meditation teacher especially, is helpful. So this is where the person can guide this younger person, and this younger person can ask questions, and there is this kind of communication, and that helps, especially very often young people, they're caught up with ideas from peers, from the mass media, and they think that's the right way, and they try to follow the right race, but in the end they find they're not happy. Some of them, of course, notice this early enough, and they are bright enough to say, I'm going to get out of this. I remember a very interesting, a couple of interesting cases, but there's one I like to tell you. Many years ago, I was invited by a NUS, National University of Singapore lecturer on philosophy. And he invited me, he says, can you talk about Nirvana? I said, wow. He asked me to talk about Nirvana. I'm so surprised that he was interested in Nirvana at all. So I talked about it, and he was asking a lot of questions himself. So that's again another thing that surprised me. Although he has students there, I was the one asking the questions. So he's showing an interest in it. So we went on like that, And then a few years passed. In fact, about 10 years passed later. I came back and I asked around, say, where is he? And I was told that he has migrated to Thailand and is living there happily on his own. He's no more a lecturer. So he was, in a sense, he was already planning ahead some kind of peaceful life. He was seeking answers to his life. So some people don't say it, but actually they're doing that. That is why, talking Buddhism helps very often. Don't assume that people say, oh, they're not interested in Buddhism. Sometimes they don't say it, but they're actually seeking answers. Some of us already, we more or less know what to do. We're happy. Maybe we're very fortunate that way. But then at some time we realize we just want to focus our life a bit more. For example, for me, I've been doing sutta translation for the last 19 years, and I've been so happy doing that. Because I love reading the suttas. I want to understand what's going on. I'm not saying I'm an expert now, but every time I read up, there's something new that comes. So I'm able to tell this to you, and it sounds interesting because it seems new, but it's all the time there in the suttas. And the more time you spend with it, the better you understand it, and you are in that position to share that experience with others. So that is beauty, because it is truth, and you feel joyful about it. It is the joy that keeps you going. If you don't enjoy your work, you better don't do it, because you're forcing yourself, and that's going to cause mental health problems. So enjoying your work is very important, right? So that's where I find sutta work enjoyable. So does Ratna. So that we are able to work together. So I hope you find something enjoyable in listening to the suttas too. Okay. Any other questions? Next question.
Teacher Pia.
Yes.
Can you comment on the Sangha Guna? There's one part that says the four pairs.
Sangha virtue, is it?
The 4 pairs and 8 noble beings.
Oh yes. Okay.
Can you
yeah, in the reflection on the Sangha, right?
Yeah.
Atta Arya Purisa Yogani, right? The twin.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, when you do the reflection on the Sangha, it says there are these 4 pairs of persons, the 8 individuals. The 4 pairs of person, the 8 individuals. We'll be studying all this in detail in due course, but I will explain to you briefly today.
Okay, thank you.
Now, first of all, when we talk about attaining awakening, right? The first stage is stream winning. It's called stream winning, stream entrance, sotapanna. It's because you have reached the path and you follow the path. Here is like a stream. You flow, by the way, against the stream. It's very interesting. It's not with the stream. It's actually against the stream, upstream, where? Towards the ancient city. Very interesting, right? So that's the stream winner. So, but before you become a stream winner, you are a stream winner to be, right? Then you become a stream winner. Then there is the once returner to be, once returner become, and then the non-returner to be, non-returner become, arahat to be, arahat become. So you have 4 pairs. Okay, very easy to remember. They are like the undergraduate and the graduate. Okay, right? So you have this undergraduate still studying, and then it's going to graduate at the end of the semester, the year, okay, or the course. So the saint to be, or the noble one to be, and the noble one become. So you have 4 pairs, and there are 8 of them in that sense. Okay. This is a bit technical, but this is saying how people practice. From there, the gradual path, then they attain that state of awakening. That's why there are 4 and 8. Okay. Anyway, as I said, we are going to go in details how this happens through the 10 Sangyoja Master 10, Curtis.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
By the way, y'all can ask questions about your meditation, anything related to Dhamma practice, yeah?
This is your chance to ask question. You have 15 minutes more. Oh, ask Gexiu, raise hand. Okay,
Yes.
Gexiu, please
Yeah.
unmute yourself.
Where is she?
Yeah, she's a Gexiu.
Okay.
Yeah, Brother Pia,
Yes.
there's always a lot of emphasis on moral virtue,
Yeah.
but there's not like too many people talking so much about the moral shame, the hiri ottappa. I mean, it is much emphasized as well in the Buddha's teaching as well, right? I mean, if you can maybe find that.
Yes, it'd be good if, teachers remind us once in a while, right? Again, you find that some temples, you have good teachers who remind, especially Sunday school children, what these are. Moral shame, moral fear. The hiri ottappa in Pali. Hiri translates as moral shame. I mean, it's a bit difficult to translate, but this is one of the popular translation, moral shame. Ottappa is moral fear. Moral shame, one way of looking at it is we do not break the precepts because we feel we respect other people, or family, society. Then if we break the precept, what will people think, it's not the right thing to do. I mean, let me tell you a funny story here. I was walking along this train station, MRT station once. I often walk fast, and most Singaporeans walk fast. And unlike in Thailand, where we normally give way to elders, here we see who cuts off who first. Okay, very often to be very careful when you walk in public. Everybody is trying to rush. And it just happens that that day I was not looking around carefully. I was walking quite fast towards this escalator, and there was this person who cuts right across me very fast, and I almost tripped. So I had to really stop suddenly, and then I stood there. This person already disappeared. I was thinking, I said, wow, this person really does not care about other people. And what if I had tripped? Or worse, I said, if I had put my foot forward, this person would have fallen. And that would be terrible. Then there was this thought that came to my mind and said, you should have done that, You should have put your foot forward and let that person fall. It's a nasty person. Then another voice said, no, how could you think like that? You're a Dhamma teacher. Okay, so there you are. You have this moral, in this case, you can go either way. See? This moral shame warning me, say, don't do that. You don't even think of that. That's not the right thing to do. So there is this aspect in us which will tell us. It's a kind of inner voice telling us, don't do this, not the right thing. And that's the right kind of advice. All right. So on the other hand, there is moral fear. This is more like karma. You say, oh, I should not do this. There are moral consequences. It's not healthy. It's going to come back on me. I'm going to think about it, right? So that's the moral consequences of it. So this helps us to be stronger in moral virtue. These two are called the protectors of the world. The two brightness, the two bright lights in the world that guides us. Because the Buddha says, without this moral shame, moral fear, we'll be living like animals. We will not respect one another. There'll be no father, no mother, no relationship. We just, do what we like with each other, and that is terrible. We fall below the human state. So keeping the precepts, in other words, is to keep us on this baseline of humanity. It keeps us human. Because if you break the precept habitually, you will fall below the human state. You fall into the subhuman states. What are the subhuman states? The animal state, the preta state, and the hell being state. Of course, sometimes you have the asura also included. So we don't want to fall into that state, because once you fall into that kind of state, you're reborn in that kind of state. It takes a very long time to come out of it, because those levels are really very crowded, very people, I mean, the beings there really hurt each other and so on. So we want to, the precepts keep us on a human level, keep us human. When you do the divine abodes, loving kindness practice regularly, that brings you up to the divine level, the Brahma level. So they're called Brahma Vihara, Brahma's abode, okay? But of course, we don't want to be born as Brahma just like that. We use this practice and we live divine lives right here and now through our practice. Then we use this, we want the focus, we use the focus and reflect on impermanence. And that will bring us to the path of awakening. And once, if you are a stream winner, if you are reborn in the heavens, fine. Even you may fall from the heavens, when your karma is finished, you are reborn in the happy human state. You will not fall below the human state. That's the wonderful thing about being a noble one, a stream winner upwards. You will not fall below the human state. So that's why moral virtue is important in that sense. It protects us from falling into the subhuman state where there is no spiritual progress. Okay. Okay, any other questions, feedback?
Any more questions?
Were you able to understand everything I said today? Any difficult points that you're still thinking about?
I would like to ask one question since nobody's asking.
Sure.
You're talking about moral shame. What about the Chinese? They always very conscious of their face, you know.
Face.
Don't say this, don't say that, you know,
Yes.
because of their face.
Yeah, we do have teaching of face in Buddhism too, but it's a very different kind of approach. The Chinese idea of face is because the Chinese are a very crowded community. So the idea of, you know, holding up your face is important before a crowd. So it's more of a social kind of a status thing, you see. Whereas in Buddhism, state is more important than status. Status is what we pretend to show people. We want people to think, or what people offer us. Now, once someone offers you a status, that means you owe someone. That is why the Chinese are very careful never to accept things like that. So New Year, you see, there's a lot of exchanging because nobody wants to owe anyone anything, in the manner of speaking. So this face thing can be good, but it mostly is not very healthy because it's not really spiritual, it's purely social. The idea to show your status, you see? Whereas in the Buddhist teaching of faith is more about what's called moral courage, which I mentioned in the previous class yesterday too. Moral courage is where you know what's moral fear, moral shame, and you know what's right, what's wrong, and you know that it is better to stand up for what is right than be praised for what is wrong. Okay, so that is moral courage because you know clearly what's right and what's wrong, and what are the dangers of wrong, what are the benefits of right. And you have that feeling that people need to know, otherwise they may make mistakes. And then one day they come to you and then you tell them, oh, you know, I know this. Then they'll blame you. They say, how come you know all this? You didn't tell me. See? And as a teacher, I often worry about that. What if I don't say something which is important, which needs to be said, and the audience does not know this, and then they keep making that mistake. So that takes courage in order to tell the truth, because you might not be popular, so people may not like you. So it's a decision you must make. So if you're a Dharma teacher, yeah, I mean, you have to make that decision of telling the truth at the right time, right? Yesterday we were talking about this Ambalatika Rahula Vada Sutta. The Buddha was teaching the young Rahula about telling the truth, right? So faith is one thing, telling the truth, which is beneficial, is another thing, which we must understand that they're quite different. So you have to decide when to tell the truth, how to tell the truth without, bringing shame to others. So it's quite tricky, right? But it can be done. When you have loving kindness, when you learn to put it in a humorous way, for example, use stories. Story is a very great way of teaching because it's so indirectly, right? But remember, it is very important that we teach our young ones the right thing at the right time, so that they don't make big mistakes in the future, especially after they leave home, they go to school, they learn all kind of things from other people, right? So in many ways, if we can help them with some useful ideas early in life, we should do so. Maybe not our children, maybe there are other children in our care. We can do that. We can teach them some really beautiful Buddhist values, especially mental health, mental peace. I think they'll be grateful to you for a long time to come, having learned that. Okay, any other questions?
May I add on to the comment about faith?
Yeah.
The idea that Chinese or people of Chinese descent cares more about the faith, I think it's one of the greatest fallacy that is left uncorrected.
Mm-hmm.
From my interaction, it is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Not true at all. I think this mistaken belief that Chinese love to guard their faith to do with placing others before ourselves. It is nothing to do with faith. If you look at the other community, other races, a faith is even more important to them. If you look at China, we are strongly influenced by Taoism and Confucius teaching. China is a country much mightier than India. Much mightier in today's terms. But yet, if you look at China, China is strongly influenced by India. Without India sending across one soldier. How could you even believe that a community, a race of that love its faith would allow its culture to evolve based on imported values? So I just want to share that this is one of the greatest fallacy that we have conveniently not corrected. In fact, it is a good excuse for us to attribute our inactivity, our inaction, our non-cooperation to a safe face. It is not true at all.
All right, thank you.
Which is why Buddhism fits in very nicely in China.
Yes, of course, the Chinese culture is changing. It's always very difficult to, summarily talk about a particular race because there's so much global influences nowadays. I suppose on the individual basis, you might see this here and there, not just one race. But basically, the idea of faith is that with individuals. So we just got to be mindful of ourselves, right? Okay. Okay, any other questions or feedback? We have a few minutes more.
Gamini.
Yes.
Gamini, you have a question? You've typed something in the chat box. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that sometimes this is based on what they talk about mana, abhimana, and adhimana.
Okay.
So I think the face is something that
the word that The Gamini use means conceit. Okay, conceit.
Yeah, so most people don't have that. But the thing is, when you think about me, mine, this is me.
I, me, mine.
So then, yeah, I, mine, you know. So sometimes you forget that you're thinking like that. That is why sometimes this saving face. I think, as that other gentleman said, I think the Chinese having saved face is probably a fallacy, because most of the Chinese I have met I haven't actually seen anything like that. So I think it is just a term that they use.
Yeah.
Probably it's not in practice.
Yeah, we call this the old school thinking.
Yes.
In the past, perhaps. Yeah, this mana or conceit is interesting, because this is another very important idea we'll be talking about. It's one of the very tricky sangyojana, very tricky hindrance. It's fetter, by the way. So we will talk about this another time, which is very interesting. Yeah?
And also you were talking about something before.
Today's talk?
I've sort of lost it, sorry. I'll bring it up some other time.
Sure. Any other questions or feedback? Well, we have a couple of minutes, right?
I think it's time already.
Oh, it's time. Okay.
We still have 2 minutes.
Yes. Any?
May I bring you to?
Yes, sure.
Point which I've mentioned before, and that has to do with the livelihood. I would really like to avail myself to your hospitality and see what we can do to make this more your work. 19 years of translation, and I'm sure many more years before that in other aspect. So that we can avail ourselves to your wisdom and your knowledge. Let's work on that and see what we can do to.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and so that we can.
Yeah.
Your life to worry about your livelihood.
I don't worry about my livelihood. I
didn't mean yours. I'm talking about.
I tell some of my Buddhist friends I'm a lay renunciant. I'm a layman renunciant, and we are poorer than the average monk in Singapore, and we're quite happy about that. Because the Singapore monks are very rich, so no problem comparing. Now my point is, what are we living for? What is our purpose of life? Our purpose of life is not to make money. It's what money buys, and what we need. You see, and what I need is happiness, and what I need is to want you to be happy. Then we have this beautiful community of happy people based on truth. So of course, we do need support, but it's not something. We don't always make a big thing about it. And these kind people with faith, they support us. We are very happy with that, you see, because an act of faith. It's not because I requested. It's not because we have a big building fund. No, we don't do that. But because it's an act of faith. You give me out of faith, and if I do not use that donation well, I'll be reborn as your slave in the future life. It's one of those traditional teachings, So there is this wonderful interaction when we work together here. So in a sense, all those of you who are supporting the work, who are contributing in your own small way, you are part of this translation project for the last 19 years. In fact, the project went on even earlier on, 50 years, started in Malacca, with some other projects. So anyway, my point is that all these sutta translations are available online under dhammafera.org. So encourage people to use it. But you want the latest one, it is in our computers, and we are always ready to send them out to you. That is why we say use Telegram, because Telegram can easily send you the big files through cloud. You can get it right away, but not the other systems. They kind of, so they get stuck. So yes, we can work together, definitely. I'm very happy if you can help. I don't know what, maybe print books or whatever, it's up to you, because this is a very big project. You know, I'm working on not only translation of suttas, but also on dictionaries, on indexes, and various sections of topics, you know, so that people can use them, like meditation books and so on. So it's a really exciting project we're doing here, and that's why I'm very happy to share with you. Okay, so on that note, I think we've reached our end of our time, right, Ratna?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we end here. Okay, so let us spend this quiet moment to remember how we have gathered here from different parts of the world to practice in our own way. We keep hearing the Dhamma, like as Chris says. So now we have to practice it in the best way we can. And also to share it with others so that we have friends who walk along the path together with us. And so it's wonderful to have companions traveling with us. We have started off by keeping the precepts, then we did some meditation, and then we listened to the Dhamma, asked Dhamma questions. By all these good deeds we have done, may we be well and happy. May you be well and happy. Send your kind thoughts to your loved ones, to people you know, people you care for. This is a good time to do that. And now we will close by reciting the closing salutation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow down. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, yes, thank you everyone for being with us.
Thank you, Brother Pia. Happy New Year
Thank you.
also.
Happy New Year to all.
Happy
Yes.
New Year.
Thank you.
So our next lesson is on the 10 fetters. So do join. Okay. Yes.
Happy New Year.
Oh,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I keep forgetting your name again. What's your name?
Good
What's your
night.
name again?
Alfred Lim.
Alfred name.
Alfred, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Alfred
Good
Lim
night,
Lim.
everyone.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night. Yes.
Pia.
Good night,
Thank you,
Alfred.
Brethren.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
New
Good night.
Year.
Thank you, Teacher Pia. Thank
Yes,
you,
good night.
Ratna.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Pia and
Yes.
Sister Ratna, and Happy
God
New
blessing.
Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Thank
Happy New
you.
Year.
Good
Thank
night.
you for your time. Yes, thank you.
Good night.
Yes.
Happy New Year,
Thank you for
everybody.
sacrificing your time to
Thank you for your
and your
time
ideas.
too.
Yes.
Happy New Year, Brother
Happy New
Pia
Year.
and
Happy
Sister
New Year.
Rana, everybody.
Yes.
Yes, thank
Good night.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Good night.
Take care. Good night.
Thank you for proofreading also. Thank you. Thank you.